How many of us have a desperado self? How many of us have spent plenty of time living in that state of mind that we could call desperado? And is that what we're here for, or is that a part of the human condition, a part of the spiritual journey? That aspect where we engage in life, but we seem to be focusing on what we can't have, or we seem to be focusing on what's missing, or we seem to focus on the emotional pain or the suffering that happens in life, which is a natural part of the human condition. Who here in this room thinks that if they stopped accumulating any sort of emotional turmoil from this point forward, they would have done their whole lifetime's worth already in the years lived, and that would be enough? Yeah. And what happens when we give up a life of pain and suffering and being stuck, and we give it up? What happens? We have a lot of space for some spiritual power to move in. We have a lot of space to co-create, not to recreate from injury, not to spend so much time looking inward, which is a valid looking, but looking inward at all the traumas, all the pain, all the suffering, all that the world outside did to me, and instead we shift a perspective and make a critical shift, and we begin to have the conversation of all of these things that are happening to me. What if they are happening to me not because, but in order that I may do something with them that is transformative for myself and for this planet? That maybe everything that's going on around me isn't necessarily for the reasons I think it is. And in fact, how many of us pause and stop to question our thoughts, to question the thing that we call reality? I know what happened, this happened, A, B, and C happened, and this is the reality, and now this is how I feel about it. How many times do we stop and question and say, are A, B, and C even true? Or are they built up from my paradigms, my perceptions, and my perspectives? And when I move into that place, can I hold the question of, did this really happen? Did any this that is this that I identify with really happen? There's a great story in the book I Had It All the Time by Alan Cohen. And the story starts like this. He says, when motion pictures first became popular, a group of cowboys went into a Montana town to watch their first movie. He goes on to talk about the film in the scene, which is a film of trauma, a film of kidnapping, a film that would disturb the population sitting in the seats watching this movie. And upon viewing the abduction, it says, a cowboy in the back of the theater stood up and furiously fired a barrel of bullets at the screen. The film stopped, the lights came on, and the audience laughed, which wouldn't happen today if bullets were shot at a screen in a theater. But the audience laughed to behold but a blank screen with 6 bullet holes in it. He goes on to say, we are equally fooled if we use the movie of life playing on the screen of our minds to gauge our identity or to measure our worth. He goes on to say, if you don't like the movie you are watching, don't bother shooting the screen. Instead, change the movie. Or better yet, turn on the light. The world is like a tunnel of movies through which we pass. He goes on to talk about how they can be dramatic and we can get openly and emotionally involved in these movies. But are we willing to stop at any point and turn on the lights and recognize that we put a lot of our action and our efforts into shooting the screen? I mean, if you think about it now with what we know about films and all of that, but then you think about the consciousness back then, right? For the first film, the brain can be tricked, right? The mind can think, even though I'm sure this guy that shot the screen knew it was a movie. I mean, he had heard of the concept of a movie, right? But still, the carnal mind, the automatic response when one is upset is, let me change something out there. Let me stop it. Let me oscillate between craving and aversion, which is the human condition, And when I have aversion, let me do anything I can out here to turn it off. Well, friends, in Unity, we teach that there's a different epiphany that can happen with our emotions, that our emotions are not necessarily things to control and to cage like animals, that is not really a trigger that is to have us silence and stop everything outside of us so that we can have peace within. We teach that peace within is ever existent, always existent, everywhere present, and that it's ours to call it forth in a moment. And that instead of silencing outside and shooting the screen of our lives, emotions are not a problem. Emotions are a trigger. They are a trigger to say, wake up, become conscious, notice this moment. This morning when I was sitting on my back deck and it started to rain, I decided to take my processing out to the back deck, and I just sat there in the rain. I did it because the cats were sitting out there, and I thought, well, that looks like a good deal. They seem to be enjoying themselves. So I followed them out. I just sat on the back deck, and I sat there in the rain, and they were the tiniest little droplets of rain, but I just felt every single one. And I could feel the different places. I mean, imagine that for a second. Feeling it on the forehead, and then the fingertip, and then the leg, and then the tip of the nose, and then on the cheek, and then on the arm. And just, I could feel every single one as if I was listening to a symphony. Can you feel that moment? And of course, it was rain. But we could take rain as being a bad thing, couldn't we? Right? How many of you sat out in the rain this morning? Right? When I came in here, I was kind of ducking through it. Emotions are the same way. We can take them as being a negative thing, or we can say, I'm going to sit in the rain. I'm going to sit in the emotions and simply feel how they land and where they land and see what they have for me. See what each one has for me. What is being triggered in a moment? I have grown up around some massage therapists, this and that, so I do a little bit of massage. I don't do massage work, but on friends sometimes I do. And so that just sounded all interesting. So I have a friend in California that was having all this back issue. He works on a vineyard, and he is always working so hard. And he came to me and he said, Erin, he knows I work on my girlfriend. He said, Erin, could you work on my shoulders a little bit? So I sat him down and I said, yeah, okay. And I said, not that he's a wimp, but I said, just have to breathe into this because it's probably a trigger point thing. It's probably not just a muscle, not just soreness. It's probably something that's calcified, that's built up over time. And I touched those two little spots on your back. You know those two little spots? Like right there, right? And I touched those two little spots on the back. And when I touched them, right, he went into like his headache, his ache, his this, his that. Like I was murdering him, right? And I said, just breathe into, feel it release, did this whole thing with him, just let it go. And I kept, massaging those points. And he was like nearly crying, like nearly in tears. And that's why I'm not a massage therapist. That's the kind of massage I give. Like, if you want me to help you, it's going to hurt. No. That's why I do ministry instead. No. So we worked on those spots. Finally, after working on them for a while, we got to release it through a series of techniques. And the next time I came to visit, one of the first things he said to me was, come here, do those spots again. Because I told him, he's like, there's something wrong. This shouldn't be hurting like this. This isn't like based on reality, right? I touch your arm right like this. Everyone touch your arm, just touch it. Is anyone dying? No. Maybe we hit a spot. Someone's like, there's something there, right? So he was just fascinated. He thought that this can't be true, that you could touch my back and it could cause that much pain. So when I came back the next time, the first thing he said was, I want you to do that again now, because we had worked on it the last time. I don't really believe you that it wouldn't hurt, right? So I went and I did the same thing, and he was baffled. He's like, I cannot believe that. I don't even feel it. I feel it, but it feels normal. It hurt so much the last time. So much. And I said, yeah, that's a trigger point. That's what happens. The next time, nothing at all. Touch the same spot, no reaction. Our emotions are the same way. Our field of consciousness through which we filter experiences and project emotions is the same way. If something triggers us and causes a lot of emotional and mental and spiritual turmoil, then there is something there. Just like the body has trigger points, so does the emotional field. And when we have beliefs and experiences that over time have not been healed, it begins to calcify. It begins to have a consciousness built up around it. And we actually go through a process in life of looking for evidence that will prove this spot hurts. And you are pushing it. This spot hurts. And you are pushing it. And you fill in the blank of what you is. You could be the government, you could be your family, you could be your mother, you could be your lover, you could be whatever it is. You could be the system, you could be the bank account, you could be a health condition, you could be whatever it is. Take a deep breath, fill in the you. But the second it hits that calcified spot, you go, oh, something is happening to me. This isn't just me. This isn't just what's going on with me. Whoa, no. There's a problem out there. But what happens when we have that reaction is that we're shooting the screen. And when we shoot the screen, nothing changes, does it? Nobody wakes up. We don't have control about the effect out there when we shoot the screen. Two very pivotal points from the sermon last Sunday. If you didn't catch it, I invite you to catch it online because it was the first sermon in this series dealing with the concept that no thing and no one is against me. If you didn't catch it, I invite you to check it out on the website or YouTube. But there were two amazing points that stood out to me. One was that pain not transformed is pain transmitted. Jane Simmons said, pain not transformed is pain transmitted. So if I don't turn the camera onto myself and look at what's going on with me, that spot hurts so much, that emotion has come back with such ferocious intent, if I don't do what is mine to do with that and claim the transformation in that, then I transmit it. Then I act from it, and I go ahead and I shoot the screen. I do something external to create an opening to let go of some of the pain, the suffering, the chaos, because I can't process it all myself. See, it's too much to have in my field or in my body. It's too much to presence what's going on with me, so I have to leak it out and say, ooh, would you want to share that with me? How about you? Would you like to share that with me? And what we do unconsciously in the human condition is we go around to each other unknowingly. We go around to each other. These things are always coming at us, and we go, do you want to share that with me? Oh, she'd love to. Do you want to share that with me? Oh, she'd love to. Do you want to share that with me? Absolutely. And then all of a sudden, we have validation and verification, because guess what? I just shared it with me. It is in you. I just saw it. I just saw you do it. I just saw you act it out. Absolutely. I went through my little series of actions that are built up in my conscious and subconscious mind, and I found the validation. If I want to have an experience that shows that you're going to hurt me, that you don't value me, that something is wrong, I can find ample opportunities, can I not? In this world, can you find ample opportunities to take things in many different ways? To take things either for your crucifixion or for your ascension. To take things for your destruction and your demise, or for your resurrection and your co-creation. Each of us has that opportunity. We're either going to validate, to verify, to vilify the outside world. And all of those practices are just venom. They're just poison. Because we live in a field of consciousness. We live in a field that is not separate. The illusion is that it's separate. And that's why even this idea of doing our own work and taking it back here and looking at it doesn't have to be so terrifying, because this isn't separate anyway. This is just the space we create from. It's not really separate. The idea that it's separate is an illusion anyway. But if I can turn into myself and do my own spiritual work, then I have shifted the ethers. Then I have shifted the collective. I have raised the vibration, raised the consciousness, and in fact, invited more like experiences in. But if I don't do my spiritual work, and I continue going along the human journey, kicking and screaming, knocking out light bulbs, busting through windows, I am releasing and birthing more opportunities for that pain to be transmitted. And the thing about pain transmitted is that we can't control it once we've let go of it. If we have a framework that has caused us suffering, if we have a framework that believes in lack, that is organized all around finding experiences to be victimized, to be in lack, fill in the blank. If we have that framework, even when we do our healing, the time previous to our healing, we have transmitted. And that's part of the human condition. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I like to say that we're here to grow all over each other. We're here to grow all over each other. It's a messy business. And I think we all kind of consciously came here and said, I'm ready for that. I'm strong enough for that. I'm whole enough for that. But this concept that what I don't heal, I transmit, I transfer, I don't get to, when I have my spiritual awakening and my epiphany, say, oh, now let me take all of that back in, let me suck it back in so no one else has to be affected by it. The times that I'm acting out are the times that I am transmitting my pain and suffering. And once it is out there, I cannot control how it grows, how it multiplies, or how it heals. Now, there are other practices that are for another time, but there are practices where I can step into a conscious field of harmonizing that energy, that consciousness. Even the 12-step program goes into practices where we can go back and make amends for the pain body that we have passed on to other people. But the moment we make a choice to take our pain and externalize it, rather than look internally, we have just given up a God gift. Because the God gift is to feel the trigger point in every moment, and not like a toxin or a pollutant or a poison, to let it seep into the environment and seep into our lives and color everything. So we don't have rose-colored lenses on anymore, we have garbage-colored lenses. We have lenses that only let in one perception, one perspective. And that is the perspective of being hurt and of being a victim. Now, there's the idea of these experiences we have being true or not, but it's really an irrelevant idea whether or not, when we're validating an experience, whether or not it's true. Is that a weird thing to say? It's an irrelevant thing whether or not what we experience as our reality is true or not. The parts that we say are facts, parts that we say are not facts. Because here's the spiritual basis. On one level, none of it is true. None of it is true. None of it is true. Because nothing in the material realm, no experiences, thoughts, they're all like the film. They're all like the screens on the movie. They're all emotional dramas or experiences, whether they're good or bad, but they're things on the screen. The you that is the true you is the self that experiences all of them, but you are not them, therefore none of them are real. And on the same note, they're all true. They're all true because we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and part of that human experience is feeling a field of emotions, and those emotions co-create, and you can't argue with an emotion. If there's one thing we bring home today, it's that we can't argue with an emotion. And so much of conflict, so much of victimization, so much of pain is about emotions and how those emotions seem to us to be reality. You can't argue with emotions, so all of it's true. Facts plus perceptions equal our emotional experience. The key to transformation is when we take all of those solidified thoughts and we question everything we think that we know. We question our perspective, we question our experience, and we move into a place where we listen to our experiences and we say, well, that's a possibility, and there are other possibilities here. This perception, this perspective, this reality that I'm seeing or experiencing is one possibility, but there are other possibilities here. Our perspectives come from the frameworks that we've developed, and these frameworks filter our experiences. That's what we talked about last Sunday, the filtering of experiences. Self-fulfilling, collecting evidence, validating experiences. They're all like statistics. They can be used to prove anything. It's ordinary to go through life calcifying these experiences, making them real. The only things that seem to shift them are education, near-death experiences or the death of someone that is loved, hard knocks, things that shake your foundation. But there's one more thing that can be a pivotal awakening moment for each of us. Can we, instead of waiting for these hard knocks, can we take on the spiritual path and allow the spiritual path to draw us into transformation so we are pulled by a vision rather than pushed by discomfort? I was reading that in Tibet, there is no translation for the word guilt. So when we wake up to this idea that this is in our control, this is in our power, but we've been asleep riding the pain train for too long and not getting off of it. And once we realize we were driving the train, we can have guilt about that. But in Tibet, there's no real translation for the word guilt. There's no word for it. The closest approximation is intelligent regret that decides to do things differently. Intelligent regret that decides to do things differently. So are we willing to see that our trigger spots are our portals to awakening? Our trigger spots are our portals to awakening, and that pain not transformed is pain transmitted. If we are willing to see these two things, then we are willing to step into our co-creative ability on this planet, recognizing why we're called here at this time. I firmly believe that one of the greatest wake-up moments in the 21st century is getting these concepts. Never before has humanity had the time and the space and the emotional and spiritual technology to transform and transcend these concepts and these filters. For ages, we've been concerned too much with getting our basic needs met and certain other things. Now there are spiritual, energetic technologies that can help us transform these energies so that the next generations have the ethers quickened with consciousness that is awake. Can you use whatever is happening to you to allow something greater, something godly, to happen through you? This is our call. Namaste.